since distance learning is a thing nowadays, I'm going to take this opportunity to offer it. And I'm going to start with this question. Is it okay for companies who engage in forced labor practices to lecture us about being better people?
Ladies and gentlemen, hiss and foes, welcome to the Culture Casino!
From a Quartz article in their category of failure to comply, companies still can't stop labor abuses at Chinese factories. This story is important. It has been overlooked for probably a month by most of us. It falls right into pop culture because these types of abuses take place every day. They are happening in every company that you can imagine that produces goods that we consume here in the United States and abroad. And they're big brands. And the companies that are utilizing this forced labor workforce, and I can't use the other word probably because of YouTube, because I would use the word that starts with S, and I'm not allowed to probably. So, but these companies, they'll preach to you about everything else, including human rights and everything else, and yet the majority of the goods that they produce come from forced labor. Anyway, from the story. Members of Chinese Uyghur ethnic minority are being used as forced labor in factories far from the so-called re-education camps that have held them for years in Xinjiang, according to an extensive new report by the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, a think tank that was formed by Australia's government. Between 2017 and 2019, API estimates that the Chinese government relocated at least 80,000 Uyghurs from Xinjiang in western China to factories across the country where they work, under conditions that would strongly suggest forced labor. It's an interesting quote. What's more, it says the manufacturers using these transported Uyghurs supply at least 83 international companies, making everything from footwear to electronics. A list of well-known or well-recognized names include Apple, Nike, Amazon, Samsung, Zara, H&M, Microsoft, Mercedes-Benz, Uniqlo, and more. The report did not document factories using Uyghur labor supplying every one of these companies directly. In many cases, it only established the factory's owner, sometimes a large parent company that might own several factories, was listed as a supplier by the company or claimed to be the supplier itself. Even so, it suggests a failure among companies of all sorts to monitor the partners making their products, even if they often claim to have robust programs in place to prevent these types of abuses. Factory audits became widespread in the 1990s after child labor scandals involving Nike and the clothing line of television host Kathy Lee Gifford. Today, they're often carried out by large for-profit firms that constitute a multi-billion-dollar industry. I will say that I'm uncomfortable with companies themselves monitoring the workforce that's supplied by China, because it's in their best interest to turn a blind eye. But I'm sure we'll come across that in this article in just a second. Ineffective monitoring. Yet problems continue to crop up, raising questions about the effectiveness of audits. Research has shown that they often fail to catch labor abuses, and a report by garment industry watchdog group Clean Clothes Campaign criticized the auditing industry last year as doing more to protect company relations than workers. I'm going to skip a little bit. This is a big article. Many corporations, if not all those listed by the ASPI, have supplier conduct codes prohibiting the use of forced labor. Nike states, for example, the supplier does not use forced labor, including prison labor, indentured labor, bonded labor, or other forms of forced labor. Yet, one direct link document in the report involved Nike. As of January, about 600 workers from Xinjiang were employed at one of its largest suppliers, the Guangdao Taekwang Shoes Company Limited, which produces more than 7 million pairs of shoes for Nike annually. According to ASPI, in a story tied to the research, the Washington Post reported the factory makes shoes from Nike's signature airline and 8 other styles. Located in Laxai, to the north of Qingdao, in eastern China, it's far from Xinjiang. The transported workers, mostly young Uyghur women, did not elect to go there. There are cameras and barbed wire are all around the factory, and in the evenings they must attend night school where they learn Mandarin and receive patriotic education. ASPI says these and other workers were transferred out of Xinjiang and assigned to factories elsewhere under government policy called Xinjiang Aid. Xinjiang's regional government even pays private middlemen and local governments to organize the work assignments. One advertisement from a labor dispatch company offered Uyghur workers still in their teens. The advantages of Xinjiang workers are semi-military style management, can withstand hardship, no loss of personnel, minimum order 100 workers, said the translated ad by ASPI. Employers could add Xinjiang police officers to stand guard 24 hours a day. Brands like Apple, Nike, big companies like Amazon. This should absolutely be so offensive to us, and especially right now that we're dealing with a global catastrophe that could have been prevented by, warning the rest of the world instead of hiding it. Anyway, we move along. In another instance, the report cited a local government document from September counting 560 Xinjiang laborers transferred to factories in Henan province, including the Foxconn facility in Zhangzhou. Foxconn is the world's biggest contract manufacturer of electronics. ASPI notes that the Zhangzhou factory is dubbed iPhone City because of the quantity of iPhones it produces for Apple. Yet, Apple's supplier code prohibits involuntary labor of any sort, which it defines as including workers transported by others under threat or force, as well as payments to any person having control over another person for the purpose of exploitation. Anyway, this story goes on and on. I would suggest that you look it up. Again, it's from Quartz, and it was dated March 3rd, I believe. We really need to stop supporting companies, or at least calling them out when it comes to these types of labor practices in foreign countries. We really should be more responsible than that. These are the very companies that use their ad platforms to preach to us. Nike is a special violator when it comes to this kind of thing because they utilize this former football player named Colin Kaepernick, who went out of his way to, lecture Americans about things he thought that were pertinent and weren't actually addressed in our society. Of course, he was wrong. And his completely tone-deaf approach to the issues he claims to care about. Well, Nike decided to hire him as their spokesperson for a couple of years, and they even took away a commercial Emmy for the commercial that was made in 2019, which you can look up. It's foolish and foolhardy for these companies not to, step away from these Chinese factories where these practices are implemented. I don't know that they can get away from it because they are addicted to cheap labor and maximum profit margin. And I just honestly find that disgusting. Anyway, this is kind of more of a downer story than I really want to do, but it's the kind of thing that's happening in this world that we need to remember. I'm going to do one of these regularly to remind you the companies to be outraged at, because they're perfectly happy to lecture to us. They participate in cancel culture, and they provide non-essential things that other companies do as well. Anyway, hope you have a great day. Hope you're staying healthy wherever you are. Please wash your hands. And thanks for spending some time here today. I truly appreciate it. Bye.
Thanks for visiting today. Be sure you're subscribed and hit that for alerts.
Yay!
Of course, like and share all of the videos that you can, as it helps with the algorithm. Have a great day.